Well, something else that might drive you crazy is distracted driving. And joining us this evening is Lindsay Charles, an esteemed personal injury lawyer with McLeish Orlando. Welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, you are just the person to talk to us about distracted driving and why this is something the police are really zeroing in on and why it's not a charge you want against you. I have been charged with distracted driving.
So have I. But mine was because the phone fell and it went under my brake foot. So right under the brake. And I was afraid, and I was stopped on the DVP. I leaned down to pick it up. I was afraid that if I tried to brake, I wouldn't be able to brake. And there was a police officer on a motorcycle beside me, and because I picked it up and was just about to put it on the seat beside me. But
that doesn't seem fair.
It doesn't.
I was at a red light. And I looked at my phone. And a lot of people, including Gretchen, who connected with us on our Facebook Live this morning, did not realize that you are not allowed to look at your phone, have your phone in your hand, even when you're stopped at a red light. And that's true, isn't it?
That's absolutely correct.
So distracted driving is really what drinking and driving was 20 years ago in terms of they are trying really to change our focus about it and realize that it's the same. It's very, very dangerous. I remember driving on a highway at 100 and seeing people texting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the government actually did a study, and in 2015, they discovered that it's the leading cause of fatal accidents in Ontario now. So I think some other statistics that they've thrown out to us to try to get our attention, to get us to stop driving distractedly, same as our children, is that someone's 4 times more likely to get into an accident if they're on their phone. And I think the other stat was once every 30 seconds, someone gets into a collision as a result of distracted driving. So it's very concerning, and it's something that we do need to take very seriously.
So what can you use in your car legally that does not contravene the Highway Traffic Act?
Perfect. So GPS systems, you often see them on people's windshields. Those are completely fine. If your phone and your car is equipped with Bluetooth and you can use it hands-free, that's absolutely okay as well. Some of these newer cars also have kind of screens built into them with navigation systems. You're allowed to use those as well.
But they all tell you when you turn on the navigation system, do not program this while driving.
I think a lot of the cars, they actually, if you try to click on them while you're driving, it won't let you do it. So you'd have to wait till your car's off. So that's a safety feature that some car manufacturers have built in for you, which is great.
Mm-hmm. So my understanding is you can't look at a map unless you pull over, and yet you can drive and look at a screen.
That's right.
Right?
It does seem odd, but that's the way the Highway Traffic Act has kind of drawn up the law. I mean, obviously they don't talk about reading a book in front of the car, which I actually have seen truck drivers do, which is terrifying. But it's kind of using your common sense as well that you shouldn't be doing that.
And the other thing too is usually the map in the car that's up on the GPS. Usually somebody's talking to you.
Yeah.
The whole system is turn left, turn right in 500 meters. So it's there, but that's not what you're really driving by. You've got somebody talking.
Absolutely.
So what are the fines for distracted driving?
So if you're convicted of the offense, the minimum fine is $490, and you get 3 demerit points. If you have to go to court and you get convicted that way, it's $1,000. And there's also heftier consequences for novice drivers. So a novice driver would be like a G1 driver, a G2 driver. If you have your M license, your M1 or M2, you actually get a 30-day suspension for your first conviction. For your second one, it's a 60-day suspension. And for your third one, they just take you out of that graduated licensing system, which, you know what, I think it's important for kids that we do have that in these novice drivers.
So let me ask you, with drinking and driving, I think we then got to the point where if you had so many convictions, you lost your license permanently. We haven't quite gotten there yet with this, but do you see that coming?
I hope so. You know, it's one of those things that when we were growing up, we were kind of very much scolded for drinking and driving. They put the wrecked car out in front of the school and everyone got it. And we grew up understanding that. And I hope that the same thing's enforced for children now and novice drivers who are contemplating driving and texting, because the consequences are sometimes even worse. So,
well, there are some very good I don't want to call them commercials, but things online that you can see on YouTube about police officers saying, what affected them when they went. The Last Text, I think it's. Yeah. I think the series is called. If you want to search it up on YouTube about what that last text was that claimed somebody's life, and it may not just be your own. You may, take out a family in a car as well, because it's just a fraction of a second.
Yeah. And is it really worth it? Right.
What kind of excuses have you heard? Because I'm sure you've heard them all from people who say I was the babysitter, my kid was sick. I mean, I don't know.
Well, the red light one is a big one. I was stopped at a light, or I was stopped in traffic. Nothing was happening. I just wanted to look down at my phone. The unfortunate thing is that maybe the guy behind you is doing the same thing, doesn't see you stopped, and since you're on your phone not paying attention, boom, you get hit, and your own safety's at risk. And if there's pedestrians around, it becomes a big mess. So I think the biggest one we hear is, I was just stopped at the light waiting, or I was stopped in traffic waiting. I thought it would be fine.
What about in the court system? I mean, is there any leeway for any emergency?
Yeah. So if you're calling 911, that's prohibited. Like, you're allowed to do that. So I guess that would be leeway.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you better have a good reason.
No. Yeah.
For calling them. So do you have some tips for people to avoid distracted driving?
Sure. I mean, one of the great things that's been very recently come up with is there's this app, and you can click into your app that you're driving. So if someone sends you a text message or a phone call, and that phone call is from a cell phone, they'll actually get a text response saying, I'm driving. So that person doesn't think you're ignoring them. They just know you're being safe. Another one that someone else told me about is just, putting your phone in your purse, putting it in the back seat. Even if you have Bluetooth, it'll still pick up your calls, but you're not as tempted to look over and see that message that you got, or see what the email is from your boss or something like that.
Well, there are people who claim that even talking on the phone, even if you're not holding the phone, is a distraction. And I've heard arguments from people saying, yeah, well, I'm sitting at a red light. I picked it up just to see. And I was stopped, and it was a brand new red light. Meanwhile, I see people who are drinking their coffee or undoing their coffee while they're driving with one hand, and doing all kinds of other things, or leaning back to deal with a child's toy. So, it is kind of, I guess you have to start somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I think it's become such an issue that's why the legislation was written the way it was. And we're seeing horrific accidents as a result of this. And since it's so common, it's not just the one-off of the kids screaming in the back, that the legislation is being written like this.
How do you prove it? I mean, how do they prove it? You're in an accident, the phone's in the floor, it's burned or whatever. How do they prove that it was distracted driving?
Cell phone records.
Oh. Yeah. Oh. So, but if it was Bluetooth?
You're allowed to be on your Bluetooth device if it's hands-free.
Yeah.
Right.
If it's hands-free.
So is there ever a problem proving it?
From my experience, not that I've seen.
Okay.
Also, when it comes down to it in a lawsuit, that you are under oath and you have to tell the truth and those things. And usually people take that oath quite seriously. So, it's in their best interest to tell the truth at that time as well. But there are other backup records too.
Just quickly, as drivers, we're responsible for making sure pedestrians are safe,
yes.
Right? So what happens with those people that are texting as they walk across the crosswalk?
And this is a big issue, because not only are drivers distracted, but pedestrians are also hooked up to their phones and they're not paying attention. Right now, the way the law reads, it's that us as drivers are responsible for these pedestrians that are distracted. That might change in the future, but that's the way it stands right now. So not only do you need to be careful for yourself, but also the other person that's distracted that might be crossing through that crosswalk.
Lindsay, tell everyone where they can get in touch with you if they need the services of a personal injury lawyer.
Sure. So I work at the law firm McLeish Orlando. You can find my profile on the website, and we'd be happy to help you if you need to.
All right, Lindsay Charles, thank you very much for coming in.